All right, public safety. I move that council adopt an ordinance amending the code of the Borough of Carlisle to create a pilot program to decriminalize the possession of a small amount of marijuana, the smoking of a small amount of marijuana in a public space, and the possession of marijuana paraphernalia. I will go ahead and make the motion, ask for a second, and then turn things over to Councilor Stubbe for discussion purposes.
I second that motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hicks. And Mr. Stubbe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to start by thanking members of our community, borough staff, and my colleagues on council for their input on this proposed ordinance. I appreciate the discussion we've had, and while I know this ordinance is not a perfect solution and that it does not solve all of the issues created by the criminalization of cannabis, I do think it is a step in the right direction. I'd also like to point out that action to reform outdated cannabis laws has wide public support. A recent Pew study found that 2/3 of Americans support legalizing cannabis for adult use, including majority of Democrats and majority of Republicans. This is shown true at the ballot box with voters in conservative states like South Dakota and Montana, in a moderate state like Arizona, and in a liberal state like New Jersey, all overwhelmingly approving ballot measures to legalize cannabis this year. Last week, the United States House of Representatives passed legislation to decriminalize cannabis throughout the country. And in Pennsylvania, the governor and lieutenant governor are calling on the state to legalize cannabis. Ultimately, this is an issue that extends beyond the bounds of our border, of the borough. And while we vote on this ordinance tonight, action by the state government and the federal government is still needed. It's time for us as a society to reconsider how we treat this issue. It is time for us to reform our failed and outdated cannabis laws. Thank you. And with that, I will open it up to any comments from anyone in attendance, either virtually or in person at Borough Hall that would like to speak on this matter.
Yes, I would like to speak.
Thank you, sir.
So I am heavily against this proposal. I think it is not the best thing for our community. I've seen firsthand how drug use, including marijuana, has affected people in this town. A friend of mine has an addiction so badly that he cannot hold a job whatsoever. He has recently been contemplating suicide because he has been heavily reliant on marijuana. I've experienced seeing it all across town, outside alibis, constantly when that was open. I don't believe that morally or ethically it is good for the community. This council a few years back disapproved of a casino being put into this town because of fears that gambling would add to the already drug problem. And now you want to decriminalize a drug, which I find to be reprehensible.
Thank you for your input, sir. Is there anyone else in attendance, either virtually or in person at Borough Hall, that would like to speak on this subject?
We do have a gentleman coming to the podium.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, if you could please give us your name and address for the record before you begin.
My name is Luke Enzer. I'm not a resident of the borough. I'm here as a representative of the Capital Area Libertarian Committee. I was invited to come by Councilman Jeff Stubbe. I just wanted to say that, sorry, I'm not really good for public comment and kind of nervous.
Take your time, sir.
Basically, the Capital Area Libertarian Committee has unanimously endorsed this ordinance. The bottom line that we have to consider is, what role do we want government to have? Do we want it to be acting as our parents and have the power to fine, arrest, and jail us for personal decisions? The gentleman before me said that that gave a very tragic story of somebody who is experiencing some very detrimental effects of drugs, and that is a very serious concern. The problem is, it is not a concern that government action has been shown to help with. And in fact, it makes it worse because this is happening in the face of prohibition of this drug federally. More to the point, look at the people whose lives are destroyed by the prohibitions because of they have some marijuana and they are arrested, jailed for decades at a time. And I don't see how that in any way is helping this gentleman's friend to solve his problem, which he obviously needs help, but it is not the role of government to do that by threatening the rest of us for choosing to ingest something. Thank you.
Sir, did we get your name and either a business address or home address? I don't think we did. If not, if Stephanie, if you could give that to Joyce before he goes. And I also forgot to get the address of Mr. Menino as
He's
well.
still on the call. I can unmute him if you'd like. Here you go.
Okay, yeah, just so,
Unmute your Tyler.
yeah, Mr. Menino, it's our custom
Yeah.
to address for anyone that speaks
Sure.
as part of our public comments, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it's on Forbes Road. Do I have to give the full address?
No,
Forbes Road in Meeting House Heights.
all right, thank you very much.
Am I able to speak further upon the subject in response to the previous gentleman or no?
If we get into a back and forth, this could go on all night. So, because then of course he'll want to speak.
Right,
And then, you know, where does it end?
right.
We've got your comments. If you'd like to submit something in writing, we can also, we can always attach that to the minutes of the meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I also want to note, and unless Jeff, you're going to do that, you got about the written comments that we received. Were you going to?
Yes, I was just going to state that we did receive a number of written comments by email, some in support and some in opposition to this ordinance. And before turning it over to council for comment, is there anyone else in attendance, either in person or virtually, that would like to speak on this? Okay, I will then open it up to the rest of council for any of their comments, if anyone has anything they'd like to say.
I have one thing to add, Mr. Stubbe. I just want to say, I think this is a topic where I respect all sides and all opinions, and my vote tonight will be reflective of the distinction between legalizing and decriminalizing. And on the issue of decriminalization, there is not an ounce of doubt that the criminalization of marijuana has had a detrimental effect on our society. And we are not doing ourselves a favor to continue to criminalize what is in effect a problem that we can deal with in other ways. So I wanted to make sure everybody listening understands that this is not a motion to legalize, but to put this topic, to put this problem in the right context. Thank you, Councilor Stubbe.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Is there anyone else from council that would like to speak on this?
Yes, I'll just add to that. First of all, thank you, Councilor Stubbe, for your work and your leadership on this. I'm supportive of this effort, but also want to commend the speakers that we heard tonight and the messages that we got of folks that had, I think, a productive dialogue, a civil dialogue, disagreement, but it was never hostile, which I think is always good discourse for local government. And I hope this move tonight, will provide potentially further movement in Harrisburg or potentially with the U.S. Senate. Not that our vote would change that, but maybe we can see some federal or state movement on an issue such as this. And then, as I mentioned in the past, as we move through this, any advocacy we can do on criminal justice reform relating to folks that have passed penalties because they possessed a small amount of marijuana. So again, I'm supportive, and I wanted to thank you for your work on this.
Thank you, Councilor Cramsey. Is there anybody else from council that would like to speak? Okay, I believe we have a motion in a second, so I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor Scott, for roll call on this.
Thank you, Councilor Stube. Yes, this will be a roll call. Madam Secretary, if you please.
Mr. Clancy,
Aye.
Ms. Fulham Winston,
Aye.
Mr. Hicks,
Aye.
Ms. Landis,
Aye.
Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mayor Scott,
Aye.
and Mr. Stube.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.